Hey guys, Will Terry here, and today's video is going to be called Why Aren't There More Famous Female Illustrators? I must be crazy to tackle something like this. I can just see the guys at YouTube, somebody with a cigar. Hey, we got to cancel Will's channel here. He's way above his pay grade. I do have some troll food because I feel like we're going to need it on this one. Okay, so why in the world would a guy be stupid enough to tackle a subject like this? Well, probably the biggest reason is that I just counted Tuesday. Not that means anything if you're watching this video weeks or months or years from now, but in 2 days I start teaching at UVU again in the fall, and I looked at my roster and I have 20 students, which is normal. 13 of them are women, which is normal. And there have been a lot of articles written about this subject. There's one in the Huffington Post. There's a bunch of blogs written about this. This subject comes up all the time on Facebook. And the answers that I see are not satisfying to me. So I want to explore this subject. And I think there'll be some good discussion about it. I am definitely not trying to piss anybody off here, so that is not my intent. In fact, it's quite the opposite, because I have more female students than male students. I want to make sure that I'm doing right by them, because I think that they're getting some really bad answers. So first, before I get going on this, just to show you that this is not a man rant. Some of my all-time hero illustrators, the people that I put way up high on a pedestal, the people that I've looked up to for many, many years, before I got going, when I was still in school, and even some of them that I've come onto the scene recently, I want to give you a list of some of my hero illustrators. Now, I'm scared of doing this simply because I know that I'm leaving some amazing female illustrators out of this list. I only have so much time to prepare for these videos, but I'm just going to read you off my short list, and I know that I'm missing a ton, and there's a ton that I'm influenced by that just didn't quite make the list, but that's okay. And I'm just going to rattle it off. Anita Coons, Mary Grand Prix. I've talked about these guys before on the vlog here. Renata Luska. I might be pronouncing some of these wrong. Loish Van Bartle. Brittany Lee, Brooke Boynton Hughes, Kanuko Kraft, Janie Ho, Mary Engelbright, Julia Sarda, Therese Larson from Stockholm, Nicoletta Sicoli from over there in Italy, not Italy, but a little country inside of Italy. Wiley Beckert, Piper Thibodeau, I think is how you say her last name, and Kim Minji. I don't know. I know she's Korean. Love her work. These guys are people that I will look at their work to get inspired. Okay, so this has nothing to with for me. This video about saying that men are better than women at illustrating, because that's simply not true. But there is a disparity in the number of famous male illustrators versus famous female illustrators, and I want to talk about that. And I know that people are gonna always point to the exception. Well, I know some, everybody knows smoking's bad for you, but there's always somebody in the group that's going to go, well, my uncle was 239 years old and he smoked his whole life, Yeah, there's exceptions. There are going to be exceptions to everything on this list. These are generalities, but by those generalities, we might actually come to some answers. So why is it? Why are there much fewer famous female illustrators than male illustrators? One thing that I think most of these articles and blogs and Facebook groups will talk about is that, a lot of women become mothers, and that takes a huge number out of the pool of potential female illustrators that would have gone on to become very famous, but they've made other life choices. And that's either stagnated or stunted their progression, slowed it down, or Maybe they've gotten out altogether. And I think that's very plausible. I think that, I know a lot of female illustrators that are mothers that don't have as much time. In fact, I get a lot of email regarding that saying, how am I to compete? Is it possible to compete? I'm raising a family right now. I can't spend as much time as you do. And I've spoken about that here on the blog before. That's in so many ways, it feels so unfair to me, because I get to spend all day working. And, when I raised my youngest boy, because my wife went back to school, and so I had him sitting right here by the desk, not in this house, but in a different house. And it was almost impossible at times, because, when he would cry and need attention, when he would wake up, that was it. I was done working for the day, or for at least that part of the day. And it's, it's just hard. So I think that probably accounts for some, but I don't think that's the whole answer. And I think that a lot of these answers, I think that getting at this one answer is that there are many answers to this. Another one might be, and this is a stab in the dark, could it be that some women are more pragmatic about their careers and less about taking risk? It is quite risky in some ways, if you think about it, to put all of your eggs in the basket of trying to become a professional illustrator. It does take a certain amount of risk. There's no guarantee. There's no job. And I've talked about this too. It's interesting, because when you get the job, you feel like there's no risk until you get laid off, and then it ruins your finances for 3 months to 6 months to a year while you're trying to find that next job. And so, which one is more risky? I don't know. But I think the perception is that going after the freelance job is more risky. And I wonder if guys are better at risk taking. I don't know. I don't have anything to back that up, but it's something that I wonder about. The third one is probably the most controversial, and that is, are men more competitive in general than their female counterparts? And I'm not talking about nature versus nurture, whether it's biologically. I'm not going to mention the testosterone word, even though I just did. I'm not saying it's that. It could be nurtured into us. I'm not sure what that is, but I have noticed that guys tend to be more competitive. The guys that I have known in my life tend to be more competitive than most of the women that I've known in my life. And I think that factors in, even in the artwork world, even and people will never, well, not never, people will usually or often not talk about this. They often won't talk about the fact that they are in competition. I think it's a friendly competition a lot of times, but I think that some people take it to a higher degree, a higher level. I think some people can't wait to blow people away with their art, the new piece of art that they're going to unveil. And I think that other people don't really have that in them, or haven't nurtured that in them, or haven't developed that in themselves. And I think that has a lot to do with raising your artwork up to a certain skill level to where you're getting picked. You're the one that's getting chosen. Now, one of the things that I've seen in these articles, almost all of them have in common, is they're all written by women. I haven't seen any guy out there, and I'd love to see one. I think I'm the only guy stupid enough to tackle this, because I didn't see any articles written by men about this subject. I think guys are like, let's not talk about that. Let's just let them have at that. But I think it's, as a teacher, I feel like it's a responsibility of mine. I've got 13 girls and 7 guys in the class. 65% of my class is female. And this is a subject that I think is worth talking about. Again, I'm not trying to tick anybody off here. I'm just trying to explore some ideas. I think it's an interesting fact to note, and the articles will talk about this, that most publishing editors are women. That's definitely been my experience. Now, I'm mostly talking about, because I'm a children's book illustrator, I'm mostly talking about the publishing world. Because I've never worked in animation, I don't know what it's like in animation houses, and I would suspect that that's a totally different conversation, because there you're talking about hiring males or females based on an interview and a portfolio. I've talked to some, when I interviewed some I believe it was Isaac Orloff who said, because he works in the gaming industry, in animation, and I believe he told me that the skill level for basically everybody in animation is so high, and there's so few jobs to go around, that basically when they do hire somebody, it is based on nepotism, pretty much, plain and simple. All things being equal, it's less about the portfolio and more about the how the person fits into the group. And often I would suspect that if the group is male, they might be more comfortable hiring another guy. I don't know. Pure speculation. I haven't worked in that field. I'm ignorant. Put that in the comments. You can have that discussion there. Most children's book art directors are also female. And you have Caldecott committees. If you don't know what the Caldecott is, it's the biggest award in children's books, in picture books. And from what I understand, most of those committees are basically have equal amounts of men and women. Some years they have more men, some years they have more women. I have heard some people say that most years they have more women, but I'm not sure about that. And then you have organizations like the SCBWI, which is dominated by women, both in the management and in the membership. Go to any SCBWI conference, and that's a Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and you'll find that it's a sea of women sprinkled with guys, out there. I would guess maybe even 20% guys, maybe less, sometimes maybe a little more, but definitely dominated by females. So you've got a situation where females are controlling who's getting hired, who's getting picked, and you also have a pool of people, because SCBWI is the largest organization for children's book illustrators and writers, and you have that group which is developing the talent pool, aside from universities and art schools, but that's the organization that kind of cultivates the children's book world, the children's book discipline. And those are mostly women that are trying to get into that market, controlled by women. And so logically, I think you would say, well, then why aren't women hiring more women? And unfortunately, all the articles said that there's a lot of women on women hate going on. And one even said that the women want to flirt with the guy illustrators, and I found that to be completely preposterous. I'm overweight. They don't flirt with me. I can guarantee you that. The other thing is, I could make a nice mosaic of some really nerdy looking guys that are really good illustrators that I don't see the women doing a whole lot of flirting with. But that's their opinion. They're entitled to it. I just don't see it. One of the reasons why I don't see it is, it's their job on the line to hire the best. It assumes a lot that everybody's the same. I think in animation, making that argument in animation works because you're often given an assignment, a group project that everybody's working on. You're a cog in the wheel. So you can bring someone in and fit them in, and they have to draw the project like everyone else. In the children's book world, you're talking about original content. You're talking about, especially for Caldecott, you're talking about these guys and these men and women who are writing and illustrating a manuscript, and every book is completely different from the next. And then you're talking about a publisher who has to then justify, and I mean the meetings that they go through, the sales and acquisitions meetings that they go through to decide what they're going to publish, and the scrutiny that they go through, and they go through multiple meetings, and they have to justify how this book is going to be sold. It's not an arbitrary decision where it's like, yeah, I'll pick this one and I'll pick that one, and I'm just going to pick a bunch of guy books because I hate women. I just don't see that at all. They have to spend so much time, effort, and money trying to figure out if that book is going to sell. I did see some remarks by Roger Sutton from the Hornbook, who I believe he said something that he made a guess, and I'm not quoting him. So if I get this wrong, do not, I don't want it to come back on him. But basically, I think what he was saying in his article was a speculation, a pure guess, a pure question. Is, do guys write about topics that are a little bit more edgy, maybe a little bit more different or unique? And do women write about things that are maybe a little bit more predictable? I think that's what he was alluding to. Again, it's been a while since I read his article. I might have totally botched that, but something to that effect. I think it's disparaging to women. I mean, I think it's disparaging to the editors and the art directors that I know that are very thoughtful and that are very smart and intelligent. And I just don't see them choosing books and eliminating women. And even on a subconscious level, I just don't see that happening. I think that they really go with the project that works for them. And there are plenty of female illustrators. I mean, like, how are they getting their work through? There's obviously some women that aren't hating out there. I mean, I don't know. I just don't see that. But all these speculations and reasons really don't, in the end, they don't matter, because one, if you're going to play the blame game, like, woe is me, I can't make it because the world is stacked against me. I think it's a waste of time, frankly, because I don't know anybody out there who is doing really well at life right now, who has done so by saying, I can't get ahead. The world is stacked against me. There's all this discrimination going on with between women art directors and editors towards women. I don't know anybody that's gotten ahead that way. The only people that I see getting ahead, they put their head down and they work really freaking hard. So I've got some solutions and some ideas for you. And when I came up with these ideas, I thought of my hero list of female illustrators, my champions of illustration, the people that I look up to that are female. Time commitment is number one. How much time? I would ask someone like Wiley Beckert how long she puts into her average piece, how much time it takes her to work on one of her pieces, her beautiful pieces of art. I'm going to spell her name so you can look her up. It's Wylie Beckert, Beckert. I think I got that last name right. They're just simply beautiful. They're magnificent. The skill level is off the charts. And she's really new on the scene. I mean, she is brand new. She came out of nowhere. And I think that's refreshing to young female student illustrators who want to make it in the world of illustration, is to see somebody like her getting as much attention as she is and just doing such beautiful artwork. I think she just works longer and harder than most. So there's one. Here's another question. Do you dissect your competition's work? Do you actually break it down point by point? Do you make copies of it? And when I mean, I've talked about making artist copies before. I'm not talking about simply making a crappy copy of an artist's work. I'm talking about trying to reproduce the things so you can't tell the difference. We used to have an assignment. Actually, before I got to school, I never got to do the assignment. But before I got there, one of the assignments was to copy a stamp and mail it to yourself. And they stopped doing that because it was illegal. But it was a pass-fail grade. Could you get that letter through the mail system because you copied this stamp so well that they couldn't tell the difference? When you do that, you train your brain to think in different ways. When you copy your mentor's work, it will force you to make connections, to make discoveries, and to be able to incorporate what you've learned into your own work. If you're not doing that sort of thing, you don't really want it, And this makes me think about. I've got kind of an attitude tonight. I think you can tell, but it makes me think about people that are in med school. People that are in med school have to, they work on their studies. They have to study, for class. But they also have to do rotations, and they have to it's common to hear those guys talk about getting 4 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep a night, and just working their butts off so that they can have a better life down the road where they don't have to work as hard, right? No one's putting a gun to our heads. There's just nobody there saying, you have to do X amount of work so that you can get work down the road. But that's what we should be doing self-imposed. If you're worried about, are you going to be, and this goes for men too, because I get letters from guys complaining like, I'm not getting any attention. I'm not getting my stuff out there. No one's calling me. No one's offering me any work. What do I got to do? You have got to self-impose. I mean, put yourself in like lockdown mode and try working from morning till night or whatever spare time, that you have in building your craft to a point where people absolutely cannot resist it. You look at the list of women that I named off there. Their work is irresistible. And it's not by luck, and it's not by chance, and it's not because they got one break. It's because their work is awesome. They've worked a long time at it. They've had to make those discoveries, those sacrifices, those innovations to get there. Okay, here's another idea. Do you make lists of specific aspects of your favorite illustrator's work? So in breaking it down, do you make a list of the very things that you love about it that you then want to incorporate into your work? Doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results is not going to get you further. You have to put yourself on a steady course of improvement. You've got to have a game plan in order to get ahead, and you have to get sick of your current level of output in order to move past that and progress. I remember being at those different stages in my career, and sometimes I would just get so frustrated. I would take someone's work and just ask myself, why is this so good? Why am I so drawn to it? Why do I just want to look at this? And if you're not doing that, your work is going to plateau. It's going to stay the same. You're going to end up putting the same amount of time into it. Eventually, you'll probably lose passion for it. As artists, we are codependent. We need the validation of others. I've thought long and hard about this, and I think if I was the last man on earth, which would really suck, but if I was the last man on earth, would I make art? I don't think I would. Because I don't think there would be anybody out there to consume it. And I think I rely on other people consuming my art to be able to make more art. So if your work isn't getting better, there will probably be less and less people consuming it. And if there's people just not consuming your art, eventually you're going to run out of energy to create it. So you've got to, there was a time where I thought, I just want to be a good illustrator. I don't want to be a great illustrator. I don't really want my life to go upside down and really try to just kill it. This was back when I was getting out of school. I thought, I'll just shoot for the middle. I don't think that's possible anymore. I don't think that's, I think that shooting for the middle will get you pretty much just ignored. And I think the internet is partially to blame for that. I think that you used to be able to do that. You used to be able to have a career being a decent illustrator. I don't think you can anymore. I think you have to shoot for the stars. I think it's also important to know that there are both men and women artists out there that are willing to go much further than you are right now. I mean, they're already doing it. They're willing to spend more time. They're willing to spend more effort. They're willing to spend more research time, looking up reference. They're willing to spend more design time. They're willing to hone their skills by doing more drills, more practice, more warm-ups, more exercise. Like, I'm weak at doing hands. I'm going to spend a day just drawing hands. There are these people out there, and you can look at them as just some other people, or you can look at them as the competition. I think that the successful illustrators, they say to themselves, I have to be willing to go further than most, because if by going further than most, I'm going to put myself in a much better chance of getting hired. And that brings me to the last point that I want to make, and that is, if you haven't seen that movie, McFarlane, it's amazing. In fact, I lived in a town very close to McFarlane, California, and had a lot of the same experiences, although I was never a track coach or anything. But when I taught high school, I got to meet some great kids out there that reminded me a lot of the kids in that story. And that Kevin Costner makes a speech in there, and he says to his students, and it was just so emotional. He says to them, "You're going to win, and you know why you're going to win? Because your life is harder than theirs. These guys don't know how to run, because you guys have to, aside from all your running training, you have to get up early in the morning, 5 a.m, and go out in the fields and pick vegetables and fruit, and then you have to go to school, and then you do your running, and then you have to go back to work again, and your life is so hard." And this character is a true story, went out, and that's kind of a spoiler. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling, but it's not the whole thing. But anyway, Kevin Costner spent one day in the field, and he said, "That's the hardest I've ever worked in my whole life. You guys need to reach further. Don't listen to the excuses that other people are making. You're never going to get ahead if you do that. Don't know anybody who's ever gotten ahead by listening to that crap, because that's what it is." And that's all I got to say about that. If you like what you heard, subscribe. If you don't.